Hello and welcome to. I'm going to have Katie mute herself for just one sec. Okay, there. Hello and welcome to Advising Orientation 201 webinar. My name is Angie Carter and I will be your technical producer and moderator this evening. This webinar will be presented by Stacy Neely, Chairman of Chapter Support, and Katie Stovall, Regional Director of Chapters for Region 4. Before we start the presentation, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. On the right side of your screen, you will see the attendee control panel, and on the left is the webinar viewer window. This viewer window will display the presenter's screen when the webinar begins. The control panel can be minimized or expanded by clicking on the horizontal double arrow button in the upper left corner. Minimizing the panel allows a better view of the presentation. Take a moment to practice. There are a few features of the control panel that the attendees should know. First, be familiar with the Raise Your Hand button. This button is located along the left side of the control panel. It allows you to virtually raise your hand if you have a question or if you want to respond to a question being asked by the presenter. Click this button to raise your hand now. Clicking again will lower your hand. In the attendee pane on the organizer control panel, I will have the option to lower a raised hand. Another important feature of the control panel is the questions pane. To submit a question, hold on one second. I lost my. Type it into the question box. These may be questions related to the presentation or technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may also be asked by the presenter to type your ideas or responses here as part of an exercise during the webinar. Please send a quick note in your questions pane now. You will be asked to take 3 polls. The poll screen will appear when it is time. Please select the answer you think is most correct, and we will check to see if you're right. Questions may be submitted at any time. These will be monitored, and we will try to respond quickly if we see something that shouldn't wait until the Q&A period, such as making a clarification. During the webinar, you may be asked to respond to a polling question. Oh, we've already covered that. Be sure to stay attentive and to interact as much as possible during this webinar. The quality of your experience depends on your attention and participation. Try to avoid the distractions of responding to email, checking Facebook, instant messaging, or working on other tasks at your computer. If you need to step away for a moment, do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you will be required to log in again if you wish to rejoin the session. If you experience problems with the audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. Click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of your control panel to view the conference call number. The webinar is being recorded, and the online archive will be available to view on the CAPA website in approximately 2 weeks. Thank you so much for your time and energy that you put into being an advisor. We know the time and talent and effort that it takes to do this job, and our chapters and fraternities are a better place because of your hard work. If you submitted questions ahead of time, thanks. We have done our best to integrate the topics in this presentation. We have some experienced and less experienced advisors tonight on the call, so please feel free to ask any type of question. If we don't have a chance to address a specific question or concern, we will pass your information on to the coordinator of chapter support for your province to follow up with you directly. And now I would like to hand the virtual microphone to Stacy.
Thanks very much, Angie. And thank you all for joining us on this webinar tonight. The training is being offered as a new initiative from the fraternity. As some of you may know, the task force met in 2013 and identified the need for more volunteer training, starting with chapter advisors. Fraternity Council approved the initiative in July 2014, and the Education Department, in collaboration with key chapter support volunteers, is supporting the new training. It meets part of the fraternity's long-range plan, which is more training for our volunteers, and the fraternity is considering some major leadership and structural changes that were shared at convention in 2014. Advisory boards will not change, and therefore we're focusing on training of advisors first. This orientation webinar, the advisor webinar training series, and the advisor checklist were all developed to help you understand your role and the fraternity at large. We recognize that some of you are more seasoned advisors, but we do hope that this program will have something for everyone. We'll be looking for your feedback to better meet your needs as advisors for future trainings. The CCS team is in place, and your coordinator of chapter support is the go-to person for all advisor and advisory board information. We will list their names and contact information at the end of this presentation. Now, how do you become a successful advisor? There are many qualities that can make you so. Tonight, we'll focus on a couple of the most critical: the ability to communicate effectively with your fellow advisory board members, with fraternity officers, such as your coordinator of chapter support, your province director of chapters, and your regional director of chapters, and most importantly, with your advisees. We'll talk about where to find answers to your questions or concerns in our fraternity documents that should guide you in your role as advisors, as well as provide answers to hopefully any question you might have. And finally, we'll talk about knowing when to reach out for help from your CCS, your PDC or RDC, or another fraternity officer. As Angie mentioned, throughout the evening, we'll be polling you and asking for your questions and tips to share with others on the webinar. Our success tonight will depend on your contribution, so please share your ideas and your concerns as we go along. There are some common traits that good communicators share. First of all, effective communicators really listen to the people who they're with. Active listening means that you're engaged and you're making eye contact, letting the other person know that what they're saying is important to you. Be sure to contribute to the conversation, but don't lead or dominate it. The most engaged group is one in which everyone is participating equally. Be sure to show your enthusiasm and let the group know that you are supportive of their contributions. Try not to let the conversation turn critical. It's not productive, and it's particularly detrimental during brainstorm times when no idea is a bad one. Always promote teamwork and let your fellow advisors or even your collegiate advisee know that you are in this together and you're working together with one another to solve a problem. Try to put the group at ease by letting people know that their opinions are valued and respected. And when conversations get tense, as they sometimes do, make sure that your focus is on the problem or the task at hand, not the people involved. And be sure to give recognition for a job well done, or even a great effort that someone put forth, because we all appreciate being appreciated. Katie?
Thanks, Stacy. And I want to apologize to everyone. I'm in a coffee shop this evening, so the background noise is kind of fun. So we'll consider it some mood music for our evening. We're going to start off with knowing your audience a little bit. Some of your communication is really going to be dependent on the person who is receiving it. So it's important to know who you're communicating with. The silent generation, for example, are those born between 1925 and 1944. These people want handwritten notes or personal phone calls. If you send out an email notification of a board meeting, it's likely they won't come because they don't know about it. This group wants that personal touch. Baby boomers are going to get your email notice of a meeting, but they may question why you're sending it out, since baby boomers often question authority. Email is okay, they just want the information. Remember, they're idealistic and competitive. They're going to question your authority, so be sure to approach them in the right manner. Money, title, and recognition are all important to them. They often have dual income families and are willing to learn new technologies so you can alter the different ways that you're communicating with them. Generation Xers are more likely to read your email, but stay away from the advisory board meeting because they feel they've already dedicated enough time to Kappa and need more family time. They're also techno-savvy and want you to put the information into an email and send it out. Don't bother giving them a call. This group is generally self-reliant and resourceful, flexible, and motivated. They're distrustful of institutions. They're going to need a balance between their work and life, and they're highly adaptive to change in technology, which I think right now can be particularly interesting with all of the structural changes that we're looking at, getting some of these guys involved with that, those changes that are up and coming. You may certainly be dealing with millennials. If you've been over to the chapter house recently, you know that the house is full of them. Millennials are digital natives. They grew up in a world of constant connectivity. They're highly social, hugely optimistic, and determined to change the world for the better. While millennials are globally concerned free thinkers, they generally want things immediately, which I think might also be an understatement in the immediacy. Though they themselves aren't in much of a hurry, they can take longer finding themselves out in the world, and reaching the traditional milestones of adulthood can take just a little bit longer. You may all have some millennials that have moved back in with you. I've heard on the Today Show that that was a pretty common occurrence these days. Don't bother to call or email your advisees. Text or instant message communication to them is going to be probably the most effective. Ultimately, you must know your audience and tailor your communication to approach them. If you're working with an advisory board with several generations, you may have to reach out to them in multiple ways and methods. And let others know which way you prefer communication. If you don't want to be bothered with phone calls, but check email regularly, let others know. Now, I want you to we're going to take a moment and we're going to talk about, there's an upcoming webinar. It's called Text, Tweet, or Snap, and Decoding Today's College Student. It's on September 17th. It'll be at 9 p.m. This one's really going to be a deep dive into how to best communicate with those college students out there. Stacey, I'm going to hand it back to you and put myself back on mute.
Okay. Thanks, Katie. Now, why don't we talk for just a couple of minutes and hear from some of you? Would you please take a moment and do one of the following things. Share a communication method that's worked well for you, something in your advisory board, maybe some specific tips for others who are on the webinar tonight, how you've communicated effectively either within your board or with your advisee. Maybe you can offer a suggestion on how you've reached out to your advisee. Anything you might want to share to help someone else. Or if you have a question for other advisors on how they tackle communication, share it right now if you would, so someone else can help.
Please feel free to use the question pane to fill in your answers. That would be most helpful.
Angie is waiting at the ready to hear from some of you and get some ideas from some of you that you've utilized effectively.
So several people so far have said email. I see Google Docs. Skype has been a great, Veronica says that Skype has been a great communication tool with my advisee, allows to be face-to-face across distance. Again, email. Mindy has a private Facebook page for their advisory board to send meeting reminders. Abigail's found that they get more response from I'm assuming from their advisees when they send a text versus email. Some people use, Betsy has said that in addition to email and texting, our advisors frequently meet in person and at the house, so they get that face-to-face contact. Sign Up Genius, Janet has recommended that. That is a great tool to use to get people to sign up for Monday night meetings or whenever your chapter meetings are. And again, texting, Facebook, FaceTime, doodle polls are great to get things scheduled, and SurveyMonkey. So those are all really excellent tools for working on communication with your advisees and other advisors.
That's great. There's some wonderful ideas in there that others might be able to incorporate. Thank you all for sharing those thoughts with us. And thanks, Angie, for letting us know.
My pleasure.
Okay, let's talk about getting to know, as they're referred to, the documents. We've got a lot of resources available at CAPA for advisors that will help answer your questions and provide you with support as you mentor your advisee and work through issues with the advisory board. The first place you should always go is to CAPA's fraternity bylaws, standing rules, and policies. At this time, let's go to the CAPA website and let's take a look at some of those resources.
1 second, Stacy. I need to grow out there. I'm sure many of you have been out here before.
Hopefully you've all been on the CAPA website.
Yes, I hope so, and know your login.
If not, this is where you find it.
Yeah, please don't memorize my number.
We don't know your password, so you're okay, Katie.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go into more resources, and I'll let you tell me where I'm headed, Stacy.
Super. Once you go into the resources page, which as you saw was in the kind of the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that it lists positions like active members, alumna members, chapter president, chapter advisors. If you go down and let's click on General Resources, Katie. It's down in the middle of the page, and you'll see that once you go into the General Resources, you'll find fraternity bylaws, fraternity standing rules, and fraternity policies. But let's go first to the Fraternity Merged Index. That helps you to navigate our documents. Once you go into the Merged Index, you'll see that topics are listed alphabetically. Hang on, we're getting to it. Good, there you go. So you'll see they're listed alphabetically, followed by the location where that particular situation is discussed. For example, look under advisors. You'll see that they're covered under chapters and membership in policies pages 2 and 8. But keep looking down because under advisory boards, they're also discussed in the bylaws on pages 9 and 12. Standing rules, page 7, and policies, page 2. So just be aware that there may be several different places where your question is addressed. Really, your best bet is to get to know the documents. Read through them, pay particular attention to the areas that pertain to advisors and chapters. And let's go back to the resources page, Katie. And let's go up and click on Chapter Advisors out of the General Resources. And once we go into Chapter Advisors, let's go down to the Advisor booklet. When you see the advisor booklet, you'll see that it's your guide to serving as an advisor. It deals with your role as an advisor, how to select an advisory board, the duties of each specific advisory board member, and really valuable information that you'll need. It's a resource that you, if you haven't read, you really should read front to back and know inside and out. Let's go back now to the resources page and go down to the chapter new member chairman. And then the chapter new membership chairman, leadership guide. If you're the new member advisor, you should familiarize yourself with your advisee's leadership guide. So you'd go into the new member chairman's leadership guide, which lists your advisee's responsibilities and her timeline, bid day activities, steps to planning the new member program. And at the end, it lists fraternity resources that will be helpful for her. You really can't do your job as an advisor without knowing what your advisee's job is. There is a leadership guide for every chapter officer, and be sure to look at your chapter officer's leadership guides if you are advising 2 or even more different positions, which is the case in many chapters. Let's go back to the resources. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I will mention on the leadership guides that you should always go out to the website periodically and make sure you're getting the latest version of it. We do make edits of these on a continuous basis. So you always want to make sure you're looking at the most recent one.
Good, thanks, Katie. Let's go back to the resources page now and click on House Board President. You will surely at some time be interacting with the chapter's House Board. And the Blueprint for House Boards manual is another really valuable resource. If you serve as the House Finance or Chapter Council advisor, you and your advisee are ex officio members of the House Board, and you should know your responsibilities. Those responsibilities are found in the Blueprint for House Boards, along with information like developing the chapter's live-in rule and the visitation policy, things that will almost certainly come up during your time as an advisor. And if you scroll down through the table of contents, you'll see everything that's located within the Blueprint, and a good deal of information that will be pertinent to you regardless of your advisee's position. So take a look at the Blueprint as well. Now then, let's take a little time and search the documents and see if we can find a few things. So here's your first question. Who approves the selection of the alumni advisors? Now at this point, Angie's going to put out a poll. So you can go to your polls tab in the control panel and choose from among these possible answers. It's multiple choice. Is it the advisory board chairman and the chapter council advisor? Number 3, the chapter and the executive board of the local alum association, or the province director of chapters and the regional director of chapters. So go ahead, take the poll. We'll give you a few seconds, and let us know who approves the selection of alumni advisors. Has everyone filled in their answer?
The majority of the people have filled in their answer. We're neck and neck with 2 answers.
Is that right? Okay.
Oh,
do we need a tiebreaker?
Well, 44%, 6% say the advisory board, 39% say the advisory board and the chapter council advisor, 44% say the chapter and the executive board of the local alumni association, and 11% say the PDC and RDC.
Okay. Well, let's show them how they've done. Actually, the answer can be found in the bylaws, Bylaw 11, Chapter Organization and Management, Section 10. And the answer is 3. The chapter and the executive board of the local alumni association are the ones who select the alumni advisors. Now, these, of course, are advisory boards and chapter advisors in good standing need to be selected annually as a board with the joint approval of the chapter and the exec board of the local alum association. So let's try another one. The next question is, if by a chapter vote, an officer or standing committee chairman is not removed from office for failing to perform adequately the duties of her office, who has the authority to remove her? So I'll repeat that because it's a little confusing. If an officer or standing committee chairman is not removed from office for failing to perform the duties of her office, then who has the authority to remove her? Is it the director of chapters, the advisory board with the approval of the province director of chapters, the PDC in consultation with the regional director of chapters, or chapter council? Again, if an officer or if by a chapter vote, an officer or standing committee chairman is not removed for failing to perform her duties, who has the authority to remove her?
Okay, I'm going to give just a few more seconds and then I'm going to close the poll.
Okay.
So if you want to hurry and get your vote in, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I have, wait a minute, I just closed it. The 13% say the director of chapters, 40% say the advisory board with the approval of the PDC, 27% say the PDC in consultation with the RDC, and 20% say chapter council.
Excellent. The 40% win. The advisory board, with the approval of the province director of chapters, have the authority to do that. And you can find that answer in Bylaws, Article 2, Section 9A. So good job. One more question. Who develops the chapter's live-in rule? Is it the House Board, the House Committee, the House Director, or the House Board, the Advisory Board, and the House Committee? Take a couple of seconds and go ahead and give us your answer.
I won't play Jeopardy music, so you should be fine. Although that would be pretty funny.
It would be.
I don't know. I'm feeling a lot of pressure to get the right answer over here, and I know what's coming up next.
Okay, about 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the results were 19% said House Board, 13% said the House Committee, 0% said the House Director, wise choice, and
Yes.
69% said the House Board, the Advisory Board, and the House Committee.
We've got a smart group out there taking this poll. It's the House Board, the Advisory Board, and the House Committee that developed the chapter's live-in rule. The blueprint for House Boards and the House Chairman's Leadership Guide both tell us that that's the answer on determining the live-in rule. And by the way, the live-in rule must be included in the chapter's standing rules. So make sure that that's included in there as well. Good job on those polls, and nice job on those of you who are out taking the polls and giving us your answers. Katie, now to you.
Awesome. I'm impressed, guys. I don't think I would have gotten all of those answers correct, and I won't lie, I look at the documents pretty frequently. But right now we're going to move on to the bonus round, and here are a couple of quick questions. So what we're going to do this time, instead of answering the poll, is you will type your answers into the question pane. Angie is going to kind of sift through them and pull out some of the answers for us. Our first question, if a chapter advisor is not serving the best interest of the chapter, where do you go in the fraternity document to help you with what you should do? We'll just give you a moment, and Angie, you let me know when you've got some answers that we can go through.
Awesome. I do have one question that is not necessarily part of that. Abigail wanted to say that Article 2 in the bylaws doesn't have any sections.
Okay, we will note that.
Okay.
I'm writing it down. And we will make sure that we clarify what we're doing in the future. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, so here are some of the responses to the question. Anna Palmer has suggested email Sarah Gipe. She's awesome. She is indeed awesome. That is true. Janet Johnson says go to the standing rules. Betsy says the advisor booklet to clarify her responsibility as an advisor. Marion Kelly says the merged index will direct me to the correct document. And Valerie says the advisory board leadership guide.
Awesome. I think that all of those are really great answers, and I want to give a special high five out to whoever said the merged index. That is an awesome place to start. This particular answer can be found in the fraternity policies under chapters, policy 3, section 2, advisory boards, A, disagreements, which all of that is a huge mouthful. And just so you know, this policy states that in case of serious disagreements between the chapters and advisors, any ineffectiveness of advisors or advisory board conflicts are to be referred to the chapter support chairman, which is Stacy. She's here on the call with us. In cases where an advisor is not serving the best interest of the chapter, she may be removed from her position by the fraternity council after consultation with the regional director of chapters, or well, regional directors, and the chairman of chapter support. The advisor shall be given the opportunity to respond in writing or in person. All right, we're going to do another one here. And our question is, where do you go to find what to do in case of a medical emergency? With our chapter women out there in all sorts of different life stages, I'm sure that this comes up frequently, and it's really a handy one to know whether you're at an event or you're at the chapter facility. I hope we've got just floods of answers, Angie.
We're getting there. We're getting there. I've got one. Sarah says the chapter president leadership guide. Mindy says the emergency medical cards. Betsy says policies under risk management or the risk management leadership guide. Event or risk, according to Abigail. And Marion says 911.
I love it. That is always something you should start with.
And, Beth says emergency procedures.
Awesome. All of those are also great answers. The first place you should also look is the advisor booklet. This will be outlined in there, as well as the Vice President of Standards Leadership Guide. But the chapter president, the house chairman, and the event chairman also make up the risk management team. And they all should know and be aware, as well as you as the advisor, on what should happen during an emergency. If it's life-threatening, please call 911 before you look at your advisor booklet. Safety first, please. Awesome. So let's move on to the next one. Where in the fraternity documents do you find information on associate status? And I know this comes up a lot and is super confusing, which is why we've included it here tonight. So if you have questions on associate status, please don't hesitate to reach out to the appropriate people at the end, and we'll make sure we get your answers clarified. All right, Miss Angie, do we have a lot of answers?
We are getting there. So Betsy says the VPS and President Leadership Guides. Sarah says under the chapter president resources on the CAPA website. Beth says bylaws. Abigail, the President's Leadership Guide. Kelly says the standing rules. I got fraternity bylaws, finance guide, standing rules, and comparison document for associate members and special active status.
Awesome. You know, you guys hit most of these right on the head. I'm super impressed. So bylaws, Article 3 membership, Section 3C, which is also in the advisor booklet, and under the chapter president's leadership guide. You can also view the CAPA webinar, Understanding and Implementing Associate and Special Status, for more information. And I highly recommend you take a look at that webinar. There are so many details and so much information in there, as well as the Q&A section at the end where we work through a whole bunch of details. I might also mention that the advisor booklet has a detailed section on associate membership and special status. It's there's a very helpful chart to compare the two and really when you should use associate status and when you should use special status. This is actually on page 58 of that booklet. This comes up pretty frequently when it comes to chapters, and I highly recommend that you take the opportunity to review that section. All right, so we're also going to just take a moment to talk about our bylaws, standing rules, and policies, just general rules. As a general rule on where to look for specific things, we're going to, you go to different documents. The bylaws are the basis or foundation of our organization. The structure, the long-standing things that are not going to change with the tides or as trends change. They're like your body's skeleton. Standing rules are more like your arms and legs. They move a bit and wave around, but they're permanent. They're part of the body or the bylaws of the group. The standing rules define how to do things as the organization, like the officer's duties. The policies are more like a fad of the year based on what's currently going on. They are the clothes of the body that can be easily shed or changed based on current culture. So you'll see that we update these relatively frequently depending on trends that are happening both in chapter and alumni life. The fraternity has bylaws, standing rules, and policies, but chapters only have bylaws and standing rules. They do not have policies that can change all the time. And in fact, the Fraternity Council has just updated our policies, and the new ones can be found on the website. I highly suggest that you take a moment when you have some free time and pop out there and take a look at them and make sure you familiarize yourself with them. Stacy, I think I'm going to hand things back to you.
Okay, good. I want to clarify a question or a comment that came in a few minutes ago about finding the answer to the question, if by a chapter vote an officer or standing committee chairman isn't removed from office, then who has the authority to remove her? I said the answer was in the bylaws, Article 2, Section 9A, and someone out there very astutely said there are no sections in Article 2. Well, I looked at my notes incorrectly. It's Article 11, and that's Section 9A. And that, I'm looking at the bylaws right now, that's under Article 11 is Chapter Organization and Management, and Section 9 is Removal of Officers and Standing Committee Chairmen. So that's where that's located, and I apologize for misspeaking earlier, but that's where you can find that particular concern if you have it within your chapter. Now, let's talk about where else you can go for help. Remember, you've got a wide variety of people that are available to help you within your own board, first of all. Don't forget to reach out to your other chapter advisors and get their opinion and ask them for their help. But you also have a CCS, a Coordinator of Chapter Support, and she is a resource to you. The CCS is charged with helping you to recruit and train your advisors. Each CCS works with the advisory boards and house boards in 2 provinces. So at this time, the CCS is being shared by 2 different provinces, but they are very capable and eager to help you solve any issues that come up. So be sure and reach out to her if she hasn't reached out to you. Be sure to contact her for help. Of course, you have your PDC and your RDC for situations that are dealing with your chapters and the collegiate women there. And in an emergency situation, if you're having trouble reaching your CCS or your PDC or RDC, don't hesitate to contact the appropriate Fraternity Council member, your Director of Chapters, the Director of Standards, or the Vice President in an emergency situation. Now I want to list who those CCSs are, and you can see that, for example, Susie Hughes is working with the Zeta and Epsilon chapters. Robin Ryder down at the bottom of the list is working with Gamma and Delta provinces, rather. So be sure to, we'll leave this slide up for a few minutes, and you can take a look and find who your CCS is. You can get her email address and reach out to her if you have something right now. They are always answering questions and concerns, and certainly with the new college year starting right about now, there are things that are coming up daily, and your CCS is there to help you with your advisory board and your house board issues. So at this point, if we have some questions out there, we'd love to try and help you field some of those. Angie, can we have people give us some of the questions they might have?
Sure, I've got some already waiting for us. So Kelly has asked, and I clarified what this was because I wasn't sure. She said, are co-op students allowed in the house during co-op semester? And co-op students are business students that go an extra year and they rotate between classes and job by semester or quarter. So I'm assuming the question is kind of what, if you're not active in the house, are you allowed in the house at that time? Which I would say yes.
Katie, go ahead.
I think this one would probably depend on what the house board is willing to do. If the house board is willing to be open in a non-traditional time, like if it's the summer hours, then yes. And if they're a fifth-year student, they are definitely most welcome to continue to be a part of the chapter life.
Okay. I would say, Kelly, if you have any additional questions, maybe about that, to talk to your CCS or PDC. So Pat wanted to clarify that many chapters do have their own transportation policy. So I'm not sure. Did we bring up transportation? Was I just not paying attention?
No, I don't think we did.
They should have in their chapter documents regarding what their transportation policy is, and it is important that all members follow our risk management guidelines, particularly those regarding transportation to and from events.
Okay. And there was a question about the difference between the yellow pages and the white pages, and I clarified that the yellow pages is by position and the white pages is listed alphabetically. So same information, different format. Is everyone there?
Yes. Good.
Okay.
Thanks, Angie.
So, and I don't have any other questions. So if you have one that you want to slip in there really quickly, let me know.
There's no pressure or anything. I mean, we're only just hanging out waiting for you to type it.
No,
I am going to push ahead to the next slide just so you can see what's next while you're thinking of your questions.
We want you to be sure to look through the advisor checklist. Even if you've been advising for a long time or a shorter amount of time, the checklist is on the website. It's under resources for chapter advisors. And if you haven't glanced at the advisor checklist, it's really a great resource. It gives you a week-by-week timeline of things that advisors should do and they should know. And it's just really, it's kind of a good catch-all. You might have missed something that's a pretty important thing that needs to take place at the beginning of the year. Also, I hope that you will take a look at the upcoming webinars. Katie mentioned one earlier on communicating with millennials, which is a whole different type of communication, as many of you are finding out. But try to look at the upcoming webinars that are in this series to see if another one would be a good fit for you. And that list is available at education@kkg.org. One other thing that some of you may be aware of is Advisor Academy is an advisor training program that's being piloted this year at 3 campuses at Northwestern University, just north of Chicago, in October, at Southern Methodist University in Dallas in February, and at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles in April. That is a day-long program that's being sponsored by the Kappa Foundation, and it's being offered to advisors within a 350-mile radius of each of those campuses. Again, it's just a pilot this year, and we're thrilled to be able to be developing a day-long training program specifically for chapter advisors. So if you live in one of those regions, be sure to take a look at that and hopefully sign up. We think it's going to be a very valuable training tool for you. And next year, we hope to bring the Advisor Academy to other locations so that many more of you can have the opportunity to attend that.
Stacy, is there a contact or a place to go for more information about that?
Absolutely. Education@kkg.org.
Okay.
It's sponsored by the Kappa Foundation, but it's being developed and coordinated by the Education Department at fraternity headquarters.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking.
Stacy, I do believe an email was going out to advisors that fell within the radius, correct?
Yes, an email went out to advisors near Northwestern campus about a month ago. So we're planning to send out another reminder email to you within the next week or so. So if you live within 300 or so miles of Northwestern, watch for that email. And if you don't get the email, by all means, or don't hesitate to reach out to education@kkg.org right now and just let them know that you're interested in signing up, because we think it's going to be a really valuable tool for you all. And be sure that if you have any questions about advising, reach out to your CCS. She's here to help you, and of course your PDC and your RDC as well.
So I think we're good on questions unless anyone's still trying to sneak that last one in. Okay, so thank you to Stacy and Katie for leading the session, and thank you for your participation today. If you have questions or comments about today's topic, you may email the presenter directly or you can contact headquarters at education@kkg.org. If you would like to be more involved in Kappa's virtual training and webinar programs, we would love to have you join our producer team. Please contact the Education Department at Kappa Kappa Gamma headquarters for details. As we close the webinar, a survey will appear on your screen. You will be prompted to respond to a few evaluation questions. Please take a moment to share your thoughts on today's webinar. Your feedback will help us shape future webinar training events. If you have additional questions or comments whatsoever, please send an email to education@kkg.org. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.